Hello, everyone. JesterBell is here, and today I thought that it would be very informative and good if I got just a casual audience member to describe their traumatic ordeal watching the Snow White movie. This is my hot guest. I found her on the street. Her name is Kelly, I'm told, and she is going to give us some answers today about what it was like for a casual moviegoer to go see Rachel Zegler's Snow White 2025 live-action remake, however you want to call it. How are you today, Kelly?
I think I speak for everyone when I say
I guarantee you just blew the mic out doing that. That is the Traumatized Moviegoers. Thank you for watching. Thank you, patrons. Anyway, we do want to have some actual discussion here today, and this is an important video because we're nerds here, right? We obsess over these things a lot, but I want to talk to someone who's a little bit more casual on this stuff about her expectations of Snow White, why she went to the movie, how she's feeling afterwards. Kelly, the first thing I want is you hadn't been to a movie since Dune Part 2 last year, over a year ago. And why was that, Kelly?
there was nothing for me to see.
Exactly.
There hasn't been anything for me to see in a long time. And so the only reason I went and saw this movie was so that I could do this video with Reese because who, by the way, I don't know her.
Yeah,
She just picked me up off the street as a casual moviegoer, and she asked me, "Would you be willing to go to this movie so that I can interview a casual moviegoer?" And I said, "Of course," because I always do things for random strangers that I don't know.
Yes.
On the street.
Well, first of all, you went because of me. We'll just drop this facade for a minute. You went because I always go to see the horrible movies, and I wanted you to suffer through one with me. So,
Yes.
what were your expectations, though, going into the film? Like, you knew of all the controversy with Rachel Zegler. What were your expectations going into this film?
So the thing is, there is a segment of the internet that just makes money exclusively off of hating on Rachel Ziegler. I know, shocking. I know, it is a thing. And so part of me thought, okay, a lot of the hype is probably somewhat overblown because of that, because it is very, very lucrative. Anytime you put Rachel Ziegler in the title of your video, even if you're talking about something else, your video is gonna blow. Teresa's not.
I will attest to this. Anytime you put Rachel Zegler in a video, it blows up.
Put her face in the thumbnail, put her name in the title, you were gonna make bank. So I went into this movie thinking, okay, Rachel Zegler has gotten a really bad reputation, in many ways well deserved, because of how she's talked about her, fan favorite content, fans in general. Just she's a PR nightmare. And so I went into this thinking it can't be that bad, because the YouTube universe tends to overblow the things.
Kind of like how I would say I was
Right.
that right before, because I was feeling like all the controversy is meta at this point. It's
Yeah.
probably just going to be a mid-passable film at the end of the
Yeah,
day.
I thought maybe it'll even be decent because they went and did reshoots and they tried to fix things. They heard the audience's complaints based on what Rachel Zegler was basically saying the movie was about. And they thought, okay, we need to go fix this because fans are not going to be happy. So I thought, okay, maybe it'll at least be mid. Maybe it'll be not the best movie, but, it'll be decent for kids to watch or something like that. I did not expect to go in and have not only all of all of the YouTube outrage justified, but it's even worse than they said. Yes. I don't know how to articulate. I went in as the most unbiased, I'm gonna try to find something to like about this movie. I was not there to hate. I actually don't personally hate Rachel Zegler because I really do like her singing voice. I sing to some of her soundtracks in the car. I don't like her personality, but I like her singing voice. And so I was going in and like, maybe I'll hear her sing a nice song or something. Something. And right out of the gate, it was bad. It's bad, and it gets worse. Believe it or not, as bad as the beginning is, it gets worse. It gets to the point where we had two people walk out of our theater, and yeah. I was ready to leave. Well, I was hiding under my coat. I pulled my coat.
I was like, you can't escape. That's not fair. You can't escape. My favorite part, though, my favorite memory of the movie, though, first of all, in the beginning, we were making jokes. I wish that no one was in the theater so we could have gotten louder. But my brother was laughing so hard at one point when Gal Gadot was talking to the huntsman about killing Snow White, and her acting was so bad. My brother was laughing so hard he was crying.
He doesn't always understand how loud he is because he's partially deaf. I don't know if we can say that.
It's
on
okay.
here.
It's okay.
He's partially deaf, so he doesn't always know how loud he is. So we were having to tell him, Michael, quiet down, because he was laughing so loudly.
I was laughing too, but there was a point in the film where I was just like, this is my career. I watch horrible films like this, and at the one point I was just like, when is it going to be done? But Callie, let's get more into the minutia of it. Like,
Well, I have some notes.
You have some notes. Like, what were some things that stood out to you in the film? Anything good at all? And what were the horrible things that really made it terrible for you?
Well, let me just take you through my thought process at the beginning. Like I said, I was looking for things to not hate. And my notes in the beginning, and forgive my handwriting, I was writing in the dark. Gal Gadot is not as bad as I thought she was going to be. Which
Ringing
this was
a ringing endorsement.
A ringing endorsement. This was before her solo song, though. This was written within the first 10, 15 minutes. So Gal Gadot actually was as bad as they say. Rachel Zegler, here's my evaluation. Rachel Zegler should have voiced a Disney character because I think she does have a classic Disney sounding voice, singing and spoken. I think she should have voiced a cartoon, kept her out of the spotlight, don't let her talk to the press, keep her in the background, none of that. That would have been the best way to utilize what talent she does have without having her completely destroy the audience desire to see this movie. Another note, not far into the movie, too many songs.
Yeah.
There is a song every 30 seconds. I'm not exaggerating. They have like 30 seconds of dialogue and then they start singing again. And then
the songs are terrible.
The songs are terrible. And it's like in certain parts it felt like they were trying to like go Frozen on you. And I guess that's a sign of they were auto-tuning it and basically probably telling AI, make this sound like Frozen, make this sound like Idina Menzel. During Gal Gadot's, I'm just going to call her Gadot. I think it's Gadot, but I've been calling her Gadot for
just say Gal.
7 years. Gal's solo song was so unbelievably, horribly auto-tuned to try to sound like Idina Menzel, but you could tell it was Gal singing because you could hear her Israeli accent throughout. It was so bad. And I don't know, I'm not trying to be mean to her because I think she has a pretty sounding accent, but it just didn't work for this setting because of the way she says her R's.
Yeah, I think that it worked in Wonder Woman because
did.
when you're doing more of like a mythical character,
Right.
just sort of a general accent, I think that it worked.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think it worked for Wonder Woman. I don't think it worked here. I think she needed to drop her natural accent and work on a different kind of an accent because it took you out of it. I felt like I was listening to her rather than a character because nobody else talked like that. It was very strange. So again, back to too many songs. There's a point where the number of songs increases as the movie goes on to try to cover up how bad this is. And it gets to a point where you're just like, you throw up your hands and you're just like, okay, this is a wash. This is ridiculous. There is no redeeming value out of this movie. I have had that stupid Princess Problem song stuck in my head for 24 hours and I want to die.
Which song was the worst?
I think Princess Problem was the worst. I think that song is worse than Gal's song.
I think it's the worst as well.
I think it's the worst, and it's because it makes the male character sound effeminate. It completely takes you out of the story thus far because it's so odd. How he's dressed while he's singing it is weird. He looks like a cross between Robin Hood and the main guy from Princess Bride. And it felt like
the costuming in this movie was
costuming
awful.
was like somebody doing. Teresa made the reference to somebody doing like something in film school or
just film students, and it's like, where would you have to this?
Yeah, where would you have? That's exactly what the costuming looked like, and also it's like they were wearing sweats and pajamas.
Well, it reminded me a lot of when we would do improv in high school, and we would just come up with, like, the improv would be, you're doing Snow White, and we would just make it into the most ridiculous thing possible.
And that's what this was.
And we would get off track, and we wouldn't even be telling Snow White anymore, and that's what this movie was.
Yeah.
Any more notes?
Let's see. The CGI looks like direct-to-DVD release, which would be fine if it was direct-to-TV or
it
DVD
would still
release.
Be horrifying.
It's still horrifying, but the thing that's more horrifying is how much money they sunk into something that I could have generated on Leonardo.ai. Anyway, and then I reiterated lower down cheap CGI. It's just the CGI is horrific. So those were my notes through the first half of the movie roughly, and then it devolved into my Twitter thread, which many of you may have followed my Twitter thread while I was
Really
tweeting
quick while
live.
you open that up, Kelly,
Okay.
this is gonna be a question, I don't know, you haven't seen Wish, and that's the problem,
Yeah.
but, Wish this movie
I
actually
don't think
is
that's a problem. I
well,
think
well,
that's a
no, it's a
benefit.
problem from you, because when I was watching the movie, I was like, "This is like Wish," because the beginning opening song and the way it ends and just a lot in the film was reminiscent of Wish. Kelly, do you think it's possible that Disney is using AI to manufacture these scripts?
Yes.
Especially since Bob Iger was talking about how great AI is.
Yeah, I think that this is a problem across the board. I've heard it in multiple companies, not just Disney, where they're relying too heavily on AI because it's a great cost cutter. Well, sure, but it also looks like crap and sounds like crap. And the thing about AI is it makes your content, it can only replicate what's already been done. So
Yeah.
it will make your content. I've actually played with AI. It's actually really fun. You can actually tell ChatGPT to write you a full house script, and I did this, and I was like, I make this happen to these characters and make that happen to these characters, and it was really funny. But the problem is, it basically just lifts what's already been done from other scripts and then just kind of adds in your flavor to it. So, and that's there's no creativity. There's nothing new. It's just it's it's like a meat factory.
Yeah, I wanna say,
It's processed meat.
yeah,
That's
and
what
people
AI
I
scripts
think
are.
that people are being a little bit because they're like, "You shouldn't reject new technology," and I agree, we should explore new technology. Here's the problem. So much of new technology these days has given way to laziness. Like,
Yes.
CGI used to be great because it was well utilized. Now it's become a crutch that,
Yes.
"Let's fix everything in post." That's what happened with color grading. That's why color grading is so bad and detrimental now. It's like, we don't need to commit to lighting. We can just color grade all over it, and that's why it looks so terrible. And that's what's happening with AI. It's not being used as a tool in areas where it could maybe potentially help. It's being used as a crutch and a replacement, and it's just more and more laziness for
AI should
people.
be the seasoning on the sauce. It shouldn't be the sauce.
Yes, like
And
AI maybe
I'm big into
like
sauces.
we use AI, let's say in Premiere Pro, to just help me not have to like when I'm doing masking, it helps take some of the steps away.
Right.
But it
That's what
should
AI should be used for.
taking away some of the steps. It
Reducing
should not
steps.
be like we're gonna generate AI scripts and people are gonna love them because they're basing themselves off of other Disney movies. You're not gonna
I
have
that opening sequence when the animals open the book, I could swear that that was primarily AI, because
yeah.
it was probably they told AI to make this look like a an upgraded version of the original Snow White opening when they opened the book at the beginning or whatever.
Anyway, your Twitter thread, Kelly.
My
Your
Twitter
Twitter
thread.
thread.
Okay, so there was 30 minutes left in the movie at this point, and I had already tweeted that I was going, and then there's 30 minutes left, and I tweeted send help because I was so uncomfortable. We suffered through this inane princess problem song, which was supposed to be, you could see how Rachel Ziegler would have wanted to play that scene, because it was supposed to be him mocking her for having, elitist problems that he shouldn't have to deal with. Although all the way up to this point, he's saying, "Well, the elites just don't care about the little people and what the little people care about." And she's saying, "Yes, I need to care about what the little people care about." And then he's saying, "Oh, but that's just a princess problem. I don't have to care about that." And I'm like, "But you've been saying this the whole movie, so it made no sense." But it was supposed to. I think the purpose of the song was supposed to set up that he's mocking her, and then eventually he's going to come to respect her. But then she is so kind of, you can see it on Rachel Ziegler's face. She wants to be condescending and rude to him, but because she's playing Snow White, fearless, brave, true, kind, all this stuff, she can't let it out, and she wants to. She wants to just put this guy. She wants to use bad language, we'll say, and put this guy in his place. And then so the song just continues, and then there's a reprise, and I'm just dying here. So it was at this point that I completely broke, and I really did feel that this is going in the direction of Princess Bride, and not in a good way, because Princess Bride is a good movie, but when they start out, we're gonna do the retelling of Snow White, and then they're like, actually, this is just like a play that we're doing as college students on the Disney backlot.
Yeah, they didn't want to tell the story of Snow White, and that is that's like what I got from Rachel Zegler's original interview. It's like, and what all the original controversy is about is Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs can't have dwarfs, that's offensive. Can't have Snow White, that's offensive. Can't have a prince, that's offensive. Can't have true love, that's offensive. That's Islamophobic, that's transphobic, that's albiest, that's everything.
You mean ableist?
Ableist. And albiest too. But
we don't want to be ist against the albiest.
It was everything that original interview would suggest, with a very shoehorned in loves thing that you know was reshoots.
We haven't even gotten there.
We haven't even gotten there.
Okay, so the way I want to focus on this, because it's obviously so shoehorned and forced in. These were the scenes that felt the most forced in. The scenes where, I don't know, maybe they intended for him to take an arrow for the princess so that he had something to do. But so he takes an arrow for Snow White. They take him back to the dwarves. They ask the dwarves, please help heal him. The dwarves say, we're not doctors. We don't know what we're doing. And this is, again, just, I had already been thinking Princess Bride. They take him into the house. They clearly didn't have time to do a reshoot of him in the house. This is what makes me think the whole arrow thing may have been part of the reshoots. They take him into the house, they heal him in the house, and the doc says, I gave him this concoction of this, and this, and it sounded like those creatures or characters in Princess Bride.
Yeah, Billy Crystal.
Yeah, when we're gonna take the things and we're gonna stick this in his mouth. It's the love story. So this is what made me think that this is total Princess Bride, because now they're talking about all the concoction that he put in his mouth to make him come back.
That's another thing, like AI again, where it's just taking from other stuff.
Yeah, so... Okay, so thusly at this point, I'm tweeting things like, I feel like I'm being waterboarded. What is happening? There's a background actress dressed in the same clothes she wore driving into the Disney Studio backlot. Now, this was reference to right after they heal the prince, not not gay prince, whatever.
I figured out his name was Jonathan.
Oh yeah. So they heal the prince, and then the dwarves say, well, now it's time to dance.
That came out of nowhere.
It completely comes out of nowhere. And this is, again, another point where I pulled out my coat and put it over my head, because I'm just like, what is happening?
Well, because
was it at this point that those people walked out, or did they walk out sooner?
I think they walked out sooner.
Okay, yeah.
But you can always tell for sure if it was a reshoot if Rachel Zegler's wig changes. Yeah. It becomes a lot more permed. Yes. Because they were trying to fix it after the complaints, and in the scene of her.
I don't even know why they did that. Her hair was fine. The messy hair was fine. It was, the messy hair was supposed to be the queen. It was part of the queen's degrading of her to cut her hair off. Just leave it. Just commit. It doesn't need.
The problem is doing that and trying to mimic the original version of Snow White and the nice princess dress and all that. I think it looked really bad, and if you wanted it to look bad, then you needed to commit to that look and have her.
They should have committed to that look, because the dress was ridiculous. The dress was so ostentatious. Yeah, no one's. Oh, I gotta hide from the queen's warriors that are coming to find me. I'm gonna wear bright yellow
or bright red by the end.
Bright red.
But what was I gonna say? Yeah, you can always tell it's a reshoot. They reshot in the True Love's kiss, even though that wasn't set up whatsoever in the film.
Did you mention the fact that all the costumes that were trying to look like within the Snow White universe looked like somebody just picked it up from Walmart?
Yeah, they did. But yeah, they shoehorned all of that in, and they can't actually tell the story of Snow White because it's offensive, because staying at somebody else's house, as I said, was racist. I don't know. It's just so weird. But yeah, it was really terrible on every level, and I said this in my review, how do you possibly mess up the story of Snow White? Well, you don't want to tell it, and you do weird improv. But Kelly, now that we've gotten out, this was a horrible experience. Like, how does this, taking it away from just this individual movie, how does this make you feel about, going to the theater and seeing movies? Like, this is what they have to offer. Like, this was supposed to be the big movie for the spring. How do you feel about this is what they offer up these days?
Here's what I think. I think that this is actually, I think this might be Disney's rock bottom. I think that there may be, I've had a lot of conversations with colleagues in the industry over the last week about the importance of investors and how at a certain point your company will hit a level of inadequacy, whether it's financial problems or just mismanagement or whatever. And the investors will come in and say, hey, this is not acceptable. This is not a good use of the money that we invested into your company. This is not what we want to see. We don't like the fact that we're getting ridiculed and made fun of. We don't like the public, backlash and all that stuff. So I think Disney investors will eventually, if they haven't already, come in and say, this is unacceptable. We're not giving you more money unless you make changes. So I hope that this is like, in terms of alcoholism, not that I have experience, but in terms of alcoholism, this, I hope, is Disney's rock bottom, where they say it's time to go to Alcoholics Anonymous. It's time to get, clean myself up, get myself clean and dry, whatever the language is. Again, I don't have experience with alcohol, but I'm just using that as a reference. I hope that investors come in and say, this, enough's enough. All we care about, because this is all that the big people at the top of Disney and the investors care about, is making money, and this is not going to make them money if they continue to make themselves, unless they want to become the company that just makes bad movies that people go see just to make fun of, because there are people that do that, but that's not going to sustain them long term. And I think that in terms of like Marvel, they are trying to pivot. I don't think they're doing a good job, but they are trying to pivot. So I'm going to at least give them credit for that. Disney has now destroyed Marvel, Star Wars, and just their mainstream
live action stuff.
Yeah, they've destroyed a lot of their credibility with fans over the last couple years, and I do think investors are going to say, this is enough. Enough's enough. We want to go back to making money again. Stop shoehorning these things in. I've heard that there are changes in the process of being made, and we're just not seeing the fruits of that yet. So,
well, here's a question. This was obviously both. You didn't see Captain America: Brave New World, thank goodness, and this movie, but both of them are similar in that they're terrible films, but they were marred with controversy, of the political nature, even though it shouldn't really be political. Like, people just thought that Rachel Zegler's comments were so dumb because it's common sense. So, yeah, like, the prince wasn't stalking and all that kind of stuff. So, but both of these movies gotten themselves.
If the prince was stalking, then every man is a stalker. Well, every man who walks by and says, "Hey, you look nice," is a stalker.
Weird.
Apparently, is what Rachel Zegler is trying to communicate. But go ahead.
Anyway, I'm gonna have a video about.
I do have to make a point
in movies.
I have an important point. Go ahead. This is a topic that I again know nothing about. But True Love's kiss.
Yes.
That kiss reminded me of Hays Code Fred and Ginger movies, where they weren't allowed to kiss on screen, and so they would do different things, like have it shot from the back of Fred Astaire's head, and then he would tilt his head to the side to make it look like he was kissing her when he wasn't. They would do different tricks to imply that they were kissing when they weren't, or they would kiss on the chin, which is exactly what they did in this dumb movie. Now, just to correct Teresa, the Queen does say, rather obnoxiously and overtly, as she's creating the apple, that the antidote is true love's kiss.
I didn't even hear that, because
yeah, but if you miss that, then it's gone.
Because it wasn't that was a theme throughout
right.
original Snow White. It wasn't there, so I was just like, "Where's this coming from?"
It's kind of an important point that they mention once and then they never mention it again.
They just recorded with ADR over it.
They probably did.
Just to shoehorn
that was probably a reshoot.
But what I was getting into is, Kelly, how do you think that this is going to affect a company like Disney in terms of their progressivism? Because Disney's always strove, however you pronounce it. I don't know how to say it. But they've always tried to be a very progressive company. They've always tried to be a progressive company. So how do you think, especially the internet backlash for this film, and it's not going to do well at the box office, how do you think that is going to affect them in the future? Do you think they're going to be very reactionary? Do you think they're going to try to overly pander to the other side? Now, what do you think?
I do think that that's a big problem. I think that is definitely the direction that a lot of companies are taking. Because I don't have, if Disney wants to be a progressive company, be a progressive company, but put out movies that are interesting to watch. There's plenty of movies and media and TV shows that I have watched, Star Trek being the most obvious, that are pushing a progressive agenda. There was another content creator who we won't name on here, who made the stupid, idiotic statement that Star Trek used to be about going to visit space and other planets. No, Star Trek was about pushing a political agenda from beginning to end, from 1965, I think, when they started shooting the original, to now. It's always been about pushing a leftist, progressive, socialist agenda. But back in the old, with the older Star Trek shows that were so popular, they actually told stories that people on both sides of the aisle could find interesting and entertaining, even if they didn't necessarily agree with the messaging at the end. If Disney wants to do that, I'm fine with them doing that. Would I rather they told me a story that actually justified my values here and there? Sure. But as long as I'm being entertained, and as long as the stories are solid, and they're compelling and they're interesting, even if I don't necessarily agree with the message, I can probably still watch it and enjoy it. So I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is the pandering, as you say. Prior to this, they have been pandering to one side of the aisle for a very long time, and it's been going further and further and further in that direction, to the point where you've alienated 50% of your audience,
More than
if not
50%.
more, because now even people who might agree with your agenda are like, okay, this content just sucks though, and it makes our point of view look bad. So now what I fear they're going to do, and I'm already seeing signs of them doing this, what I fear they're going to do is now, oh, well, we just need to pander to the other side now instead of pandering to this side.
Yeah, let me interject. I'm gonna do a video about, because I've done a lot of videos about female characters in movies. I'm gonna do one for men very soon, but I'm just gonna steal this point that I'm gonna talk about is my fear, let's say, if we talk about, let's say, the problems with how male characters are portrayed in media, and how a lot of people say there aren't a lot of masculine figures, is that now the danger there is to get a new era where we're making a lot of overly idealized male characters, which is the same problem that we've had with female characters. And that the problem here is you're not coming with people who actually just want to tell a story and, experiences and all that. You're just coming with, okay, what is the correct portrayal, the ideal portrayal that we need to propagandize people with? And yet it can go both ways. And it's kind of like how bad the love story in this movie was, which is just overly pandering to criticism. Is it doesn't come from a place of this is well built up and this is well developed. It just comes of, oh, they don't like that, pander to the other side, and it's just pandering. None of it is creative. It's all just checking boxes.
There's
and
nothing genuine.
There's nothing genuine
or authentic about it, which is what a lot of people have complained about. New media versus old media. New media tries to lean into people, and for better or for worse, there's a lot of oversharing on the internet as a result of this. But there is a desire for authenticity in the new media world that the old media world never satisfied, because everything was always so heavily produced and heavily corporatized. And now, because new media is not as heavily produced or corporatized, there is a level of authenticity there that old media is scrambling to try to replicate and can't. Which is just going to be another.
You're comparing like new media, like YouTube and stuff like that.
Yeah, new media is YouTube, basically internet spaces, podcasts, all that kind of thing, because many of them are just being produced out of somebody's house,
like this.
Yeah, or they're being produced by smaller companies, or ad nauseum. But then old media would just be like TV talk shows, when somebody sits down and they have their scripted points that they're going to talk about in front of a live studio audience, and then they leave. That's what you're going to get. You're not going to get an authentic conversation out of that. So
yeah, authenticity is something that I think we really want to see from movies, and why I think that the push for AI is not making things any better. It's like the people complain about too much CGI and too much overproduced color grading and the way everything looks and the way everything's made these days, and then AI is just pushing it even further into that area. But Kelly, so here was the line from Hollywood for years. It was survive until 2025, because they had the strikes, they had the COVID, they were recovering from all of that. They said, just survive. We know 2024 is going to be bad. Just survive until 2025. The box office will come back. And right now it's actually worse than it was last year.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering, like, what
is there for me to go see this year?
There's, like, in terms of the movies that are supposed to be made,
Mission Impossible 25,000.
Yeah, but the last Mission Impossible didn't do well because people are getting tired of them. Then there's Avatar, which I can tell you is boring. And then there's Lilo and Stitch, and I think that'll make money, but it's not for you.
Right.
And then there's the Minecraft movie, which everyone hates.
Honestly, the Minecraft movie probably would have been the movie that I would have been most interested in, but it looks awful.
Yeah.
It just looks awful. And they didn't even make Steve Black. You had one job, and they whitewashed Steve from Minecraft. Unbelievable.
Yes.
With Jack Black.
With Jack Black.
Just stabbing me in the heart. I'm gonna go play Minecraft rather than actually watch this dumb Minecraft movie.
Okay, we've talked for about a half hour, Kelly. Is there anything else that you would like to say about the Snow White movie? How bad it was? What do you think? Do you think that Hollywood can ever dig themselves out of a rut? Do you think that something else is going to have to rise up and save these movies? Do you think that movies as an art form is just going to die because of all this? Because it's kind of getting late. Because they kind of took a little too long to change, or even having any sort of change behind the scenes.
I think that Snow White, this version of Snow White, is indicative of Hollywood and movie studios not having any moral scruples whatsoever, because they've reduced Snow White down into just remembering people's names is how she overcomes the queen. Being nice to people is how she overcomes the queen, and it's not in any real way. It's in very superficial, um, tea time with the ladies kind of way. It's very weird.
Weird.
Weird. Um, so I think that Hollywood needs to establish some ground rules of these are the good things and these are the bad things. I know we used to call these like virtues,
Virtues?
for lack of a better way of saying it. They need to decide what's good and what's bad in their movies again, rather than, okay, this is what's good and this is what's bad based on who likes it and who doesn't like it, because you can see that they did this in this movie, because they had taken a stance that True Love's kiss was racist, sexist, bigoted, homophobic, all of those things. And then as soon as somebody started to squeal about it, they're like, "Oh, wait a minute, we need to change." And so they need to just, I would have rather they just held the line and told the original story, because I have a feeling that the original story, while it might have been obnoxious and offensive to many of the viewers, it probably was a little more coherent than what we got, which was this drivel, this like chewed up drivel that was spit out.
I like what you're getting at here. It's like they have no actual conviction or standards themselves, which means that wherever the wind blows, they just try to follow it in a panic, and it's what brings about so many of these terrible movies.
They're trying to, it's an example of trying to please everyone and therefore pleasing no one. And so they may as well just make the progressive leftist drivel if they want to. It would probably have turned out to be a better movie had they done that and not tried to change halfway through or tried to shoehorn things halfway through. I still don't know how you have the Snow White story without having the True Love's kiss element. That
they just didn't want to tell Snow White.
They didn't want to tell Snow White, and that's another problem. I know we're getting off into the weeds, but it's another problem that Disney has, and just generally movie studios seem to have, is they take a famous IP and then they slap it onto a story that they wanted to tell that had nothing to do with the original story. And I think that this is another example of that. They took the Snow White IP so that they could sell it under the auspices of it being the original story, and then they wanted to tell another story that probably wouldn't have sold, but it's going to sell because it has the original or this more famous, more noticeable IP on it. So I think that's a big problem, and studios need to stop doing that. Just sell your product. You might actually have to invest in a marketing budget. And I know marketing is extraordinarily expensive, but marketing is what's going to sell your movie. I would do a lower budget production with massive marketing, and I think that that would be a better structure.
I agree completely. In fact, I think that if you gave $106 million budget to a film, $6 million on the movie, and $100 million on the marketing.
Yes.
And then you made like $500 million.
And I know the production people are hearing me say this and going, CGI, oh, but I need my editors, oh, but
You don't.
You don't!
What everyone, shameless plug, watch Wings from the 1920s.
Yes.
They had nothing. They had no CGI. They didn't even have sound. And they made a movie that is so much more incredible than anything you will see today.
Yes.
Because they had creativity.
I was sobbing by the end of that movie.
Yes. So good. Thank you so much for your thoughts, Kelly. Thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for allowing me to be plucked
sister,
from the street.
Not sister.
Yes. I'm just a random stranger.
I would like to do another comic book video with you soon, and we'll see how that works out. Right. Thank you so much. Thank you for watching the awful Snow White movie. I think it will go down in infamy as one of the worst movies ever in the production, and very, very pivotal.
Pivotal.
in the history of movie making, and I was a part of it because I made rage bait videos on it.
Yes.
Even though if I got off track, but which I'll just say for the final time, I tried to walk it back and try to go easy on Rachel Zegler and say the backlash
I did as well.
that had gotten out of hand, and then she kept putting her foot in it. So if this movie has bombed because of what she said, like, she has no one to blame but herself. But that's all I got for you guys today. Thank you, patrons. As always, if you want to support this channel on Patreon, you can check out the link in the description. Also in the description, there is a link to my short films I've been practicing on and my Rogue video that I've spent so much time working on, almost 20,000 views. Thank you all for watching once again, and we will see you guys next time.
Thanks, patrons.